I have a confession to make. I'm a commercial farmer. One of the previous speakers talked about people like me. Actually, I have a second confession to make. I'm also an environmentalist. Now, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have wanted to admit to the first or even consider the second. Today, I think the opportunity to be looking at both sides and feeling there's some opportunity to work together. A commercial farmer works with the natural environment, plants, animals, to produce food and fiber. Much of that work involves changing the natural environment or tweaking processes to achieve more production or more convenient products that the local or the global consumer is willing to pay for. An environmentalist works to reduce the changing of the natural environment and the natural processes to keep more of what was the same. Because nature, left to its own, tends to be pretty efficient. Something dies, it becomes food for a different part of the ecosystem. The river erodes a stream bank and deposits those soils further down in the delta for something else to provide nutrients for a whole new set of plants. Doesn't take a lot of our action, and it happens in a natural process. But both nature and farmers, commercial farmers, have customers. It's just the currency, the packaging, and the delivery systems that are different. I was born in the 50s. I grew in the 60s and the 70s. Started my career and my family in the 80s and 90s, and finally grew up in the first decade of this century. Right north of Picture Butte here. Most people, when they have the opportunity, start with a real awe and a respect for nature. Whether it's a newborn calf, a freshly hatched robin, or a pumpkin seed breaking through the earth's crust, we can only be amazed at life. But we're also soon impressed with how ruthless and determined natural systems are. Be it the wind, a thunderstorm, untimely snow, weeds, or predators. I think my story is similar to most people who've grown up in rural areas. My parents taught me to respect God's creation and to be a good caretaker or steward of the part of it that I lived on or had responsibility for. They also put me to work in that creation, in the garden or the chicken barn or the pasture. And let me tell you, getting nature to cooperate to go my way is really hard work. A baby calf is at risk of cold, wet weather. Other cows, coyotes, its own mother sometimes, and all kinds of different diseases. So, as a farmer, as a small kid working on the farm, I learned something about customers. If your customer is a coyote or a maggot, nature does a great job with beef all on its own. But if your customer is a teenager wanting a hamburger at the A&W, the packaging and the delivery system have to be a whole lot different. After college and 5 years in Edmonton, I came back to the farm with my wife Laura and our children with the intention of making a living off the land. It's an honorable profession and it's something I love doing. I knew a lot and I wasn't scared to talk about it. Then came the hard work of actually doing it. But making a living on the land is hard work, and like any other way of making a living, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of learning, a lot of study. We use technology, research, and try to adapt to do the work that we could do. So with 20 years spent studying both how I made a living and observing how nature makes a living, we were ready to build a house. We wanted to build a comfortable place to live and still mimic or copy nature and natural methods as much as was reasonable. So we started, what started with straw bales, something that farmers work with all the time, became an innovative learning experiment that I would like to share with you. It came out of the conviction that observing nature and trying to mimic, as well as using technology, was a potential where I could go down the road on. And the other thing is, someone, Ken Kersey, who's talked on leadership before, talked about you don't lead by pointing and telling people someplace to go, you lead by going to that place and making a case. So the project, we wanted to build I built a straw bale maze in 1999. I wanted to use straw bales then to build a house. It just looked like the perfect building blocks. We did some research on alternative building methods, and we concluded that straw bales were only a small part of building a house. Our thinking then moved from building a house to sustainably building a house. We developed a purpose statement for our project, and I think that's probably the most important learning that I had through that process. We wanted a welcoming house that had a low impact on the environment and met our lifestyle needs. We decided that the process of building, just like the process of farming, seeding, cultivating, working through all the way to harvest, was important as the outcome itself. And we had to get over a few things: fear, doubt, and worry. Fear that we might make a mistake. Doubt, will all the different things work? And then finally the worry, can we afford it and will it actually work? So we made a number of deliberate choices: rainwater collection, grey water recycling, and composting toilets. We're still working on that. Highly insulated building envelope, recycled materials wherever appropriate, solar heating, both passive and active, low VOCs and non-toxic materials, and earthen floors. The site that we chose was close to a lake, close to a highway, and it was a degraded site. So we tried to work with nature. We put a lot of natural species, replanted them. We're still in that process. It was a degraded site, but it was also close to both work and to town. So we started with straw bales, built a foundation that was insulated and working completely with a very solidly insulated envelope, to a structure where we found out that even though we wanted to build with straw bales and it sounded like a great idea, we still used an awful lot of wood. Added a turbine to it, and so we were trying to do electrical generation. Here's a picture of us working with a grey water system. This was taking nature's water cleaning system and trying to adapt it in a closed area that was still going to be safe for the rest of the environment, but allows us to polish our grey water, which is wash water, but not toilet water. So all the wash water that we use would be naturally filtered, and then we use it for flushing toilets and for plants. We also put 2/3 of the house into earthen floors. This is not a new idea either. We use local dirt, clay, and sand, as well as flax. They do it all over developing countries. It's a very effective way to do it, but it's a lot of work. The adobe floors are made of local products: sand, clay, and locally grown flax and linseed oil. And then we finished it with beeswax. So we were able to go to a house, which we're now living in. It's got stucco sides, it's got metal roof so that we can collect water, triple pane windows. Our next project that we're working on right now is low water use landscaping, and we're trying to make uses of many local species as possible because nature's done a good job figuring out what plants work here. That's what we're trying to mimic. The house itself, because a house is not just about a building, it's about living in it, is wheelchair accessible all the way through. It's my granddaughter and a good friend. She wanted to test it within 3 days of us moving in. She had to test the entire house to see how it worked. The stairs, made out of recycled benches from a church. So we were able to build those stairs. They're 50-year-old trees. They were 50-year benches, and now are probably 150-year-old trees. And now we hope we can have them for 50 years. I'm not here to tell you I've got the answers to sustainable living, but I am here to invite you to visit my website or even our house, to assess that project, to learn something, to share, to be inspired, and I hope to act. Because you don't have to do it all to start making a difference. You can look at ways of mimicking nature right in your own backyard. Creative leadership in the 21st century is not about having the answers or to only be a critic. It's about using past knowledge, nature's lessons, traditional and today's discoveries, and technology to ask deeper and better questions, and then act once you've got that learning. But act willing to make more mistakes, willing to learn, and willing to share. It's in a world like that that I can be free to confess to be both an environmentalist and a commercial farmer. Thank you.